My name is Steve Parks. I'm a professor at Syracuse University, which I guess is where we're having the Fed Fest today. And about 15 years ago, by happen chance, I found out about the Federation of Worker Writers. And I remember thinking at the time, and just to put on my professor hat, that this was one of the most significant working class writing projects of the 20th century. That as an organization, tens and tens of thousands of books were published and distributed across the UK, France, Europe, Middle East, into America. Publications which aren't only good writing and good history, but also literally track the lives of everyday folks from about 1970 onwards, in a way that no other writing project has been able to do. There have been oral history projects, but a self-generated, written by the folks themselves type set of publications just didn't exist. And I remember one day I was saying to Nick, so where can I go to read all these great publications? And he goes, well, there really isn't a central place, because each of the writing groups have them, and there's storage places here and there. And that kind of put the idea in our head that what we really needed was one central location where all of these books could be stored. Because if they're in people's houses, they might get lost. If they're in people's basements, they might get moldy. If they're in storage units, they might get sold because the storage unit bill comes down. And this whole history, this whole 40 to 50 year history of working class writing was going to be lost. So working with Nick and Jess and with the Federation and all the different iterations of the board, of which Roy has been a huge help, I should just say, we managed to sort of begin the process of collecting. At this point, we have about 1,000 to 2,000 books. We actually have closer to 5, but there's a lot of sort of duplicates. And we're in the process now. They're now at London Metropolitan University. And Jess is going to talk a little bit about how we put the archive together, because it was important to us that when the books came into the university system, they didn't just reflect the university values. They reflected the values of the Fed, and we've done a lot to make sure that current and former members get a strong say in how the materials are being used. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Jess. I feel like I'm at like a talk show or something.
So I just wrote this up here so anyone who wants to see the name. So the Federation of Worker Writers and Community Publishers started in 1976. People like Sally were involved. And now, Roger. And we have a lot of members here who were part of this older Fed, and then now call it the Fed as well. So if for anyone new here, and especially the Syracuse students, there are two kind of iterations of the Fed, but we're thinking about all of these publications. And they're currently at London Metropolitan University as part of the Trade Union Congress Library. The wonderful thing about London Metropolitan University is that it's a public institution and anyone can go into the Trade Union Congress Library to look at this material. So it's openly accessible to every single person here. And that's one of the main reasons it was decided that that would be a good place to hold all the material. This is Nick Pollard. Many of you know him, the Fed member. And then Jeff Howard on the right-hand side. And this is Nick, who has created or given the most substantial number of donations. We're talking thousands of books that Nick's had in his garage.
Much to his wife's anger. So there's a historical and personal motivation.
And so this is where we started. So the first image that was on the slideshow was kind of the first step of going through these books. This is ultimately people like Roger, Lucy Parker, who's not here today, Dave Chambers. Multiple people from the Fed have helped organize and sort these books, as well as Syracuse University members. And so what you're seeing here is the books being sorted by regions. Now the reason this happened was because 3 years ago, Steve, myself, Nick, Ashley, Dave Chambers, Sally, Roy, Lucia, I think Louise, many people kind of came together and we had a workshop thinking about how do we want to put these publications in some sort of order for people to use them. And what multiple people voted on was that it should be based on regions. So we separated it into regions, and then in order to get more categories, we separated them by publishers or by individuals, depending on if they didn't have a publisher. And by writing group. And so that's what you see here. There's a lot of sticky notes throughout. And so this is part of the sorting that that multiple people have been part of. This is just a closer image. Now what's included in the archive is publications, minutes from the AGM meetings. We have flyers, broadsheets.
Some recordings, right?
Some recordings, some magazines, some journals. We have documents that people have written individually and submitted. So there's a lot of stuff to go through, but this is kind of in-progress images. Now what's happened, and I'm really proud of this, and thanks to kind of a lot of people here, what's been happening is on the right-hand side you have the in-progress stage. On the left are archival boxes where these have been fully sorted by region, by publisher, by individual. They've been indexed, so it says who published it, certain themes that it discusses. Maybe it's immigration, maybe it's working class life. We tried to pull out individual kind of themes from each book, and so that's the start of the actual publication archival process. So anyone who goes into London Metropolitan University, the library can look up on their database. It's very low here, but you can see the Federation of Worker Writers and Community Publishers. You can pull that up, and it will show an index of everything that's been indexed so far. We're nowhere near completed, but you can start to see how this is forming. And in that index, there's over 1,000 individual publications indexed already.
So that project preserves the book, and if you can afford to get to London, it gives you access to the book. But one of the things that I think is most valuable about Fed publications is they spoke to the local community, to the local streets that people lived on and coursed about in their day. So the next stage of this project is to begin to digitize the books and then put them online for free. So that if you're living in Sheffield and there's a book about Sheffield in the Fed Archive, you can still get the book. And we're in the process of figuring that out now, and I think Jess will talk about copyright in a second. And then the third stage of this is we'd like to use augmented reality software so that if you're going down Sheffield and you see a certain type of symbol and you point your phone at it, it'll automatically download that book that was writing about that house in Sheffield. And what we'd like to do is think about how the wonderful history you all have produced can become a living history in the communities in which next generations are growing up and facing stuff. For that to happen, a very important piece of work has to occur. Do you want me to say it or you say it? I'll say it. So one of the great things about the Fed is that everybody retained copyright of their work. One of the horrible things about the Fed is everybody retained copyright. Because now we are unable to digitize anything that the editor of a collection or the author of the book doesn't sign off saying we can digitize. We're looking into other strategies, like maybe the Fed is an organization, or maybe there's some kink in the law that we can get. But basically, we're now on an author hunt. We're looking for people who are in the Fed, whose books are now in here, and we're trying to find them and say, can we digitize your book? So what we were hoping is, while you're listening to celebratory writing, or while you're sitting listening here, if you have published stuff in the Fed, if you would sign this form, that would give us the right to digitize it. You would still own copyright in case you want to sell it for a Hollywood movie. It would just mean that people who can't afford to get to London will be able to access and read your book in PDF form. So you would still own copyright, you were just simply letting us digitize it.
I should say, to add on to that, one of the hopes that the new Fed Executive Committee has, as well as London Metropolitan University, as well as Syracuse, one of the hopes is to actually get this material used by people, to get them to the archive, to get people to read this, to write more, to join the new Fed, and to really actually make this continue on, not just sit in a library for...
Some people already are using it, right?
Yes.
We teach the Fed at Syracuse University in multiple departments.
Jess has also said that the WEA has started thinking about teaching classes, coming to the archive, using the materials, so the Workers' Educational Association. There's different community organizations that have heard about it and are interested. There's other people interested in community organizing. So it really is starting to be be used. Lucy Parker, I know, wants to produce different films based on it. There's people who want to use the materials in different ways. But in order to kind of branch that out, aside from London, that I think the best way is to have it accessible online. And so the digitizing is a really important part. So I could pass these around. If you have any questions.
I just pitched the book.
Yeah.
So while she's passing this around, let me just pitch one last thing, and then we want to answer any questions or concerns you might have. And I wish Nick was here because he has a much firmer sense of the history than I do. But you might have noticed that there were flyers saying transitions, and there were sort of writing prompts that people could fill out. About 8 years ago, my press, New State Community Press, published a book where Federation members from across Britain, American writers sort of in Syracuse and Philadelphia, took up the theme of education, and we published a book that had this dialogue between these multiple folks talking about the goals of education. That book has been used in different classrooms in the United States. We're trying that project again, and this time the theme is transitions. So if you have any piece of writing you've done today that you would like to appear in the book that will be both in America and in the UK, feel free to come up, hand it to me. I'll take a photograph of it so you can take it home, and I'll just maybe have you sign it so I know I have permission to publish it. If you have anything at your house, you're like, wish I had this, you can just email me. I'll give you my card, or there's some flyers where my email are at. Love to get it. And we're looking for artwork, drawings, poetry, nonfiction, whatever you wish to hand in. The idea is to create sort of this transcontinental, thank you, dialogue about what it means to have transitions in your life. So I hope you'll submit.